You didn't go looking for it, you set up a feeder. You kept the water clean. You moved quietly in the yard and tried not to startle them. You showed up day after day in the same spot doing the same things. And somewhere along the way, without you noticing exactly when, something shifted. The birds stopped flying away when you came outside. A cardinal started arriving before you'd even finished filling the feeder. A chickadee landed somewhere closer than it ever had before. A mourning dove stayed on the railing when you walked past, just watching you with those soft dark eyes. You felt it. Something between you and the birds in your yard that you couldn't quite name. This video is going to name it for you. Welcome back to Backyard Birdmind. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe because what you're about to learn will change the way you understand every bird that visits your yard. Today, we're going through 7 specific signs that the birds in your yard have moved beyond simply using your space and have actively chosen you. Not your feeder, not your garden you. A specific human being that specific wild creatures have decided, after careful assessment, that they trust. Until the end because the last sign is the one that people tell me they didn't realize was happening until they read about it, and they couldn't stop thinking about every time it had. This is the first sign, and it's the most fundamental. Every wild bird has what researchers call a flight initiation distance, the minimum distance at which a perceived threat must approach before the bird takes flight. This distance is not fixed. It is calculated in real time based on the bird's assessment of the specific individual approaching. Strangers get a wide flight initiation distance. Unknown humans moving toward a feeding area will cause birds to flush from 50, 60, sometimes 100 feet away. But a human a bird has assessed as safe, a human whose movements it has memorized, whose routine it has tracked, whose presence it is associated with food and calm and no threat, gets a much shorter distance, sometimes no distance at all. If the birds in your yard continue feeding when you walk outside, if they stay on the feeder when you approach to fill it, if a cardinal holds its position on the branch when you pass underneath, that is not indifference. That is a decision, a specific calculated ultimate decision that you are not a threat. From the University of Exeter on urban bird behavior has documented that individual birds develop personalized flight initiation distances for specific humans in their territory. The same bird that flushes from a stranger at 60 feet may hold its ground when you walk to within 10. It knows the difference between you and everyone else, and it has decided you are safe. Pay attention to this one because most people miss it. A bird that is simply using your feeder as a food resource will time its visits to the feeder's context. Feeder is full, the bird comes variable. You are irrelevant. But something different happens when a bird has incorporated you into its world. It begins to time its visits to you. You step outside in the morning and within minutes, sometimes within seconds, a familiar bird appears. Not because you filled the feeder, sometimes you haven't yet. Not because conditions have changed, but because you have appeared and your appearance is the signal. Research on individual bird recognition in urban environments has documented this pattern repeatedly. That have formed positive associations with specific humans develop what researchers describe as anticipatory behavior. Arriving in the vicinity of a known safe human before food has been provided, as if the human's presence itself is the reliable signal of safety and resource availability. The cardinal that appears on the fence post the moment you open the back door is not coincidence. It has been watching for you. It knows what your appearance means, and it came because you came. That is not a bird using a fear. That is a bird that has chosen a person. This one takes most people completely by surprise. You're in the yard weeding, sitting on the porch, reading in a garden chair, and a bird nearby begins to call urgently. Not its regular contact call, something sharper, more insistent thing that shouldn't be this. And you look up and there's a hawk overhead or a cat at the fence line or something that shouldn't be there. The bird told you. This is not accidental. Birds in territories where they have assessed specific humans as safe have been documented giving alarm calls in the direction of those humans. Calls that function in context as warnings rather than purely self-protective signals. The mechanism is it forward. A bird that has incorporated you into its social world treats you, to a degree, as a member of that world. When a predator enters the territory, the alarm call goes out to everyone in the immediate community. Other birds, yes, but also the trusted human who has been part of the landscape long enough to be included. You may have experienced this and not realized what it was. A chickadee calling from close by with unusual intensity while you were in the yard. A crow making a single sharp call in your direction. A blue jay scolding from directly above you. They were telling you something. They were treating you as someone worth telling. That is a level of inclusion in a wild bird's social world that most people never earn and never notice when they do. Stay with me here because this behavior is documented. It is real, and it is more common than most people realize. Certain bird species, particularly black-capped chickadees, Carolina wrens, American robins, and darky-eyed juncos, will follow a trusted human around a yard as they work in it. Not closely, they maintain a comfortable distance, but persistently. You weed one bed and the robin appears and begins foraging in the disturbed soil a few feet behind you. You move to the next bed and the robin follows. You carry the garden tools to the shed and the robin is on the fence nearby. You sit in the chair and the chickadee appears in the branch just above you. This is not random. This is learned behavior based on observation. Birds that have watched a specific human work in a garden over time have learned that this human's activity means disturbed soil, which means exposed worms and insects. That trimming means cut wood, which means insect access. That digging means opportunity, but they only follow the human they trust. A stranger working in the same yard will not attract the same behavior. Presence that signals safety close enough to forage. The Cornell Lab of Ornithology documents this behavior in their citizen science research as attendant behavior. Wild birds attending the activity of a specific trusted human in the way they would attend the foraging of another bird species that disturbs prey for them. You have become to the birds in your yard a known and trusted part of the ecosystem close to. Snorts, the knee is quiet and it matters enormously. When a bird pair nests in or near your yard, in a nest box you provided, in the shrubs you maintained, in the tree you left standing, the fledglings that emerge from that nest enter the world with no independent assessment of you. What they have is their parents' assessment. Bird parents communicate the safety status of individuals in their territory to their offspring through behavioral cues, through how they respond when that individual appears, through where they position themselves relative to that individual, through whether they alarm call or continue feeding when that person approaches. A fledgling that has watched its parents hold their ground when you walk past, that has watched its mother continue feeding when you approach the feeder, that has watched its father stay on the perch when you open the back door, has received a clear communication about you. You are safe. And so the fledgling, in the first weeks of its independent life, when it is most vulnerable and most impressionable, comes close to you, watches you, does not flush at the distance it would flush from a stranger. It inherited your reputation from its parents, and now it is building its own relationship with you. A relationship that, if you continue to be the person its parents assessed you to be, will last for the entire duration of that bird's life in your yard. This one requires you to pay attention over time, but once you see it, you'll never stop noticing it. Birds with strong spatial memory, and most backyard species have extraordinary spatial memory, don't just remember where food is. They remember where safe interactions happen, the branch where you stood still and a chickadee landed near you, the corner of the porch where you sit in the morning with your coffee, the garden bed where you were kneeling when a robin came to within 2 feet of you, the window where you watched them, and they have learned that the watching is harmless. These locations become mapped in the bird's spatial memory as safe zones associated with your presence specifically. And birds return to them not just when food is present, but when you are present. Research on birds' spatial cognition, particularly studies on black-capped chickadees, has documented that these birds maintain detailed maps of their territories that include the locations of positive and negative soil interactions, not just food caches and water sources where you are in that map. The places where you have been safe are in that map. When a bird lands in the corner of your porch and looks toward the window where you usually sit, it is looking for you. It has come back to where you were, and it is checking to see if you're there. I saved this one for last because it is the rarest and the most significant. Not every bird will do it. Species that are most likely to reach this level of trust with a specific individual are black-capped chickadees, tufted titmice, Carolina wrens, and with extraordinary patience, northern cardinals. But when it happens, when a wild bird with no training, no conditioning, no food in your hand for the first time lands on you, it is not an accident. It is not confusion. It is not because the bird mistook you for a tree. It is the endpoint of a long and careful value watched you. It has assessed you across hundreds of interactions. It has calculated your flight initiation distance, how close it can come before you react. It has tested incrementally over weeks or months whether you can be trusted at 2 feet, then 1 foot, then 6 inches. And at some point, after all of that assessment, it made a decision. Close enough. Research on human-bird contact behavior in non-trained wild birds documents that this behavior occurs almost exclusively with individuals that the bird has had extended positive history with, not with strangers, not with people who have made sudden movements, not with people who have startled or threatened or been unpredictable. It occurs with the person who showed up, who moved slowly, who filled the feeder even in January, who sat quietly in the garden when it would have been easier to go inside, who day after day gave the bird no reason to leave. If a bird has ever landed on you, or come close enough that it could have, understand what that means. That bird looked at everything available to it, every human being in its territory, every option, every risk, and it chose you. Not because you're special in some abstract sense, but because you did the specific, daily, quiet work of being someone a wild creature could trust. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most extraordinary things a human being can be. Have you ever had a moment like one of these? A bird that followed you? warned you that landed somewhere close enough to change how you thought about your yard? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone. I'll see you in the next